Welcome to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller, the podcast. I'm joined by Seth.
Hey, welcome, guys. Thanks for finding us on the internet.
Now, these shows originally aired on Brookings Radio, but now they're all here for your enjoyment. I hope you like it.
There you go. Sit back, enjoy the show, relax. Let us know if you want to see anything on future shows. As we said, this comes out live in the Brookings area, but enjoy this archive episode.
Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. Welcome to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. They're bold, aggressive, sometimes a bit boozy, and often among the highest-rated beers. Big beers this week on Beer Untapped.
When I think of big beers, I think of beer that's not only high in alcohol, but, complex in flavor. And these beers usually have to be sipped slowly to be enjoyed.
Big beer does not necessarily mean dark or light. It just usually means full of flavor of some nature, and in some cases, the flavor is alcohol in beer. Some of the other big beers have an overall flavor of coffee or bourbon, or have an overall flavor of hops or aromas. So when we talk about big beers, I think we are just talking the other spectrum from the daily drinkers or the light lawnmower beers.
That's Drew Eklund from Brookings Liquor Store and Seth Cook at Wooden Legs Brewing in Brookings. Seth says many of the big beers, Imperial Stouts, Baltic Porters, barley wines, Scotch ales, get to be so big through the use of lots and lots of grain.
A larger grain bill per water, and it's a concentration ratio more than anything else. Same thing for the Imperial Stouts, like the Russian Imperial Stout. The rumor is that those were brewed in England and brewed with such intensity as to survive the Russian winters and be able to make it to Moscow with it the Tsars loved. There's truth to that, I have no idea. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So the Imperial Stout was kind of the grandfather of the imperialism.
Seth referring to the trend these days of hanging the imperial tag on any beer that may be higher in alcohol content.
The imperial mentality to imperialize has kind of perpetuated throughout the entire industry. You now have imperial wheat beers, which is bizarre. And, I saw once, I saw an Imperial Pennsylvania Swanky. So that, it's just, Imperial is kind of the brewer's shorthand, or maybe a little wink across the barway to say we made this a lot stronger than it probably should have been made, so we're going to call it a double or an Imperial.
And keep in mind, a big beer doesn't necessarily have to be a dark beer.
The thing about adding more grain and any raw ingredients, obviously, is you're going to tease out potentially more alcohol, but you're also going to tease out more flavors. I mean, some of these really big beers are quite intense. Not necessarily intense as dark, because that is another decision you make, whether you're going to make it a dark beer or a light beer. But, like the Imperial Pilsner is a great example, is pretty translucent. If you were to pour it into a pint glass, it may have a slight hue, just a bit more than what would be considered a standard Pilsner, but it has the intensity of a larger beer.
There's also the example of a big beer that may have plenty of alcohol, but not much flavor or color. Think of the malt liquors produced by the big American brewers. Blah. More big beers and some upcoming events as well when Beer Untapped continues right after this.
I said, hey, bartender, hey, man, look here. Draw one, draw two, draw three, four glass of beer.
Welcome back to Beer Untapped with Perry Miller as we talk big beers. And we'll tell you about a couple of upcoming events at Wooden Legs as well. Now, some of the big beers we've explored in past episodes. However, one style we really haven't talked about much is the barley wine. Seth Cook at Wooden Legs says barley wines are made with huge amounts of grain.
It carries more grain per water than most other beers in the spectrum. Sometimes they're so thick that literally they're boiled for hours and sometimes days just to help concentrate. And it's treated more as a wine in the fact that it takes some special fermentation patience to get it to go, because there's such amount of sugar in it. You have to add a lot of yeast. You have to be very patient with it.
And they're often aged before they're ready to be sold.
Because there's such a high alcohol content or so many complexities with just the sheer volume of grain in it, you have to do some cellaring and some aging, again, patience, to make sure that those flavors blend out and come down. So a lot of the times barley wines are aged in oak. Traditionally they were stored in casks, much like wine was, and put away for a few seasons to allow to mellow. And barley wines are really Really good.
Barley wines also are often aged by the consumer, sometimes for years.
They're a turmoil of patience, are what barley wines are. Most beer is drank really well, fresh, ready to go from the brewery. Barley wines are a great exception, where they can continue to grow and mature and develop as you wait for them.
And if you'd like to try a barley wine, Wooden Legs has their first stab at the style on tap right now. Their Outcast barley wine was aged on oak chips. It's quite good. Give it a shot. If you want to try some other big beers, check out some of the new stuff at Brookings Liquor Store. Beer guide, Drew Eklund.
Just got in Founder's Breakfast Stout. That's a big one for us. $9.99 a 4-pack. Good value. Beer Advocate gave this a perfect rating. Coffee and chocolate flavors. They do kind of a complex dance on your tongue. The next big beer that's fairly new, Lagunitas Maximus. Another great value, $9.99 a 6-pack for an Imperial IPA. Big flavor, great value, well balanced with flavors of citrus, pine, and caramel malts. One more beer, new beer on tap. It's New Belgium's Le Terroir. 20 cents an ounce. I'm really excited to have this on tap. It's a dry hop sour beer. It smells like an IPA, but tastes like a sour with a slightly bitter finish.
Finally today, some great events coming up at Wooden Legs, including their Back to the Future party on the 21st, celebrating the future day that Marty McFly visits in the movie series, October 21st, 2015. They're also planning a Halloween party featuring High Octane, that is big beers, and maybe most exciting of all, another South Dakota Tap Takeover on Hobo Day, October 24th.
We're doing it again for Hobo Day this year. We're doing a South Dakota Craft Beer Takeover. So we're going to start, and you'll see over the next few weeks, we've been in contact with all of the breweries that we can get a hold of around the state, and we're going to start seeing South Dakota only beers filter in here. So yet again, on the largest day in the Dakotas, we will have all South Dakota made beers on tap. So if you come in and you say, I need a local beer, we can literally pour you anything, and it's made right here in the state.
Wooden Legs did the same thing for the first time last Hobo Day. Likely a first for South Dakota, and I believe it helped ignite the trend of seeing South Dakota beers on tap all over the state.
Last year we had to prod and pull, and not that any of the breweries didn't want to participate. They just didn't have the capacity. We had to maybe push them a little harder than they wanted to. But this year, thankfully, and with great respect, these guys are starting to produce beers and throwing them out there a little bit easier. So it's going to make life a little bit easier for us to get all of these beers on tap, and we're going to be happy to have them.
And don't forget fan cakes for Saturday's home SDSU games.
The Jacks play at home. We've got a couple more chances. Come down, grab some pancakes, cheer for the Jacks. It's a great season, going really well this year. Kind of disappointing outcome last Saturday. We'll still do pancakes. Doesn't matter. Win or lose, we still eat pancakes.
That's it for this week's edition of Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. Until next time, drink local and drink responsibly. Thank you for listening to this archived edition of Beer Untapped with Perry Miller. Feel free to listen to other episodes, and if there's anything you'd like us to talk about on a future show, please let us know. Thanks again.